Making loan payments.
There are two ways to make loan payments: making payment to a single loan, making loan batch payments, making single payments. To make a payment against a loan, you need to be on a Manage Loans screen. There are two ways to get to the screen. From the top menu, Action Make Payment, Type of Payment. From the button bar on the left, Manage, Type of Payment.
Loan scheduled payments. On the Manage screen, ensure Instrument Type is set to Loan. Select Search Proper Borrower. Once borrower name is selected, LoanAssistant will display all active loans for the borrower. Note, right below the Accounts grid, you can choose an option to see inactive accounts as well.
Click on the account to work with in the Accounts grid. Selecting the account will display all transactions recorded against the loan in the Transactions grid below. Click on the Scheduled button to the right of the Accounts grid. Make Payments screen loads. All amounts pre-calculated as per loan schedule according to scheduled due date.
User can overwrite default payment date / amount of payment. If payment amount does not cover the whole payment, there are two options available: storing in memory. With this option, no QuickBooks transaction made the payment amount will be set aside to be used later. Memory account balance cannot be greater than the required scheduled payment. Check off Store in Memory checkbox to use this option. Partial payment. If payment amount covers calculated interest charges in full, there will be a smaller than scheduled principal reduction. If payment amount does not cover calculated interest charges if full, unpaid portion of the interest will go to interest arrears and will remain until paid in full by the borrower.
Overwriting pre-calculated values. To overwrite pre-calculated values, check off the Overwrite checkbox above the Transactions grid and add Edit lines in the grid. Double-click the amount cells to make them editable. Penalties. Outstanding charges. If there are any outstanding charges, the Outstanding Charges button will have a red-colored box in it and will need to be acted on. If there are any outstanding charges, they will need to be either applied, to be paid later, paid, or waived. Late penalty charge is automatically calculated based on payment date and loan settings.
Notes. Users can add notes to each transaction by clicking on the Notes button on the right side of the screen. Once transaction is recorded, it automatically appears in the transaction grid as well as QuickBooks.
Making batch payments. To make a payment against a loan, you need to be on a Manage Loans screen. There are two ways to get to the screen. From the top menu, Action, Make Payment, Loan, Batch Payment. There are two tabs, groups available on the screen: Current Loans, Late Loans.
Making loan payments, batch. Processing current due loans, in batch. All numbers on this grid are calculated and defaulted based on the loan schedule that is up to date based on the transaction date on the screen above the grid. Select Deposit Account for each loan by using the drop-down above the grid, and enter individually in the grid itself. Click Process All Due button to record the payments. To exclude loan from the batch save, uncheck the Process checkbox in the grid for the loan in scope.
Processing late loans, in batch. All numbers on this grid are calculated and defaulted based on the loan schedule plus saved late penalty settings and based on the transaction date on the screen above the grid. Select Deposit Account for each loan by using the drop-down above the grid and enter individually in the grid itself. Click Process All LATE button to record the payments. To exclude loan from the batch save, uncheck the Process checkbox in the grid for the loan in scope. You can customize default values by selecting the loan in the grid and going into the transaction details below. Click on the Save button next to the transaction grid to process the customized single payment with the late penalties. This will process the transaction and remove the loan from the late list above.
Free trial available at theloanassistant.com.